Lexi.
My senior year of high school, we had a kid named Michael. Michael brought a hit list that he had written of 200 names of people he said bullied him throughout high school and were mean to him. Luckily, Michael didn't act upon his hit list of these 200 people, but it could have been a very different story had he had a weapon of some sort and decided to act in a manner differently than just bringing this list to school. This was a scary time for us. I remember in my high school, my senior year, and I am very glad that it turned out the way that it did with nobody getting hurt. I am here to talk about concealed weapons and the possibilities and the good that can come from having them on college campuses. My first point I'm going to talk about today is the lack of knowledge is what creates fear. Second, intent is a key word when talking about gun reform. And three, college campuses are becoming more anti-gun and less safe. Okay. First point, the lack of knowledge creates fear. There's an old saying that says, dogs bark at what they do not understand. I believe this is true when it comes to gun reform. I'm not saying that people who are pro-gun reform are dogs, not even close to that. I'm saying that those who talk about guns and say that we should not have guns, a lot of times have never shot weapons and have never actually handled one before. Okay? What it takes to get a gun is a little different than what you might think. Someone going to purchase a firearm needs to prove that they have a valid ID. Once they have a valid ID proven, they need to fill out a form that takes anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, and this is a background check. On this background check, it asks anyone if they have had a history of drugs. It asks anyone applying if they've had a history of mental health. Once they have filled this form out, the person selling the weapon or the firearm calls the FBI for a background check. This background checks for any felonies or misdemeanors, and some misdemeanors can disqualify somebody for a candidate for getting a weapon. Okay. Once someone has a weapon, to get a concealed permit, one must go through a class. This class can span from for 2 to 5 days, and it includes coursework in the classroom as well as practice in the field. Once someone has proven that they are sufficient in safety with the firearm, they are able to receive their concealed weapons permit. Okay. Clint Eastwood says, "I have a very strict gun policy. If there is a gun around, I want to be in control of it." I agree with Clint Eastwood when stating that if there's a firearm around, I'm the one who I feel I trust most to handle the firearm. I believe that a steady finger can result in less lives being hurt in a case of a perpetrator using gun violence. However, I also believe that an unsteady finger can be just as dangerous as a finger with a weapon trying to cause harm. That is why I think anyone who has a concealed carry permit needs to practice more than they do. There should be a state or federal mandated practice scene every quarter, where every quarter someone who has a concealed weapons permit needs to practice with this weapon. This will help the population be safer and more practiced when an actual gun violence incident occurs. Okay. Second, intent. A gun does not harm anybody by itself. That the person wielding it, intent, is what will make the difference. Somebody using a weapon for good or someone using a firearm for bad will have a negative or a positive outcome. I believe that a trained population will be safer than a population that has no experience with a weapon. Third, I believe college campuses are becoming more anti-gun and less safe. I think that the more times we pull guns out of the picture, we pull the guns out of those who actually could make a difference in a situation where a gun might prevail. People who are anti-gun a lot of times will say that having less guns will make a bigger difference and have less lives affected. I believe this to be false. Look at the drug institutions that we have going on now. Drugs are illegal. We have many institutions that fight drugs, but no matter how many laws we pass stating drugs are illegal, they will still be present on the streets. I believe this to be true about guns as well. Okay. In conclusion, I would urge anybody who is looking to get a concealed permit, especially on a college campus, a student, to obtain it, to learn more about gun policy, learn more about how they can have a gun be a beneficiary or benefit them rather than harming somebody. I also urge people to get a concealed permit, practice with it, so you might be able to make the difference when a scenario comes around. I've talked about the lack of knowledge creates fear. I've talked about intent is a key word when talking about gun reform. And I've also talked about college campuses becoming more anti-gun and less safe. For this, I deem, please understand what gun reform is and be safer rather than shutting all guns out. Thank you.